Okay, this topic is for both leaders and non-leaders. Don't be afraid to ask the obvious question when you're in a meeting. Don't think it's too basic or too obvious to everybody else. One is, I bet there's other people in the meeting that are wondering the same thing and they're just not willing to ask that. Two, sometimes the most basic, obvious questions are the best questions. Sometimes when we're working on a project or on something, we can overcomplicate it. We don't mean to, it just happens. You're building on it, you're taking different information, you're going and going, and things just get complicated, detailed, and it's not good, and it gets in the way. It creates friction, gets in the way of performance. So sometimes grounding or regrounding back on what we think is the obvious is the not so obvious, and it roots us back to the core fundamentals of what we should be thinking about and working on. So don't be afraid to ask that. And for leaders, especially leaders in a meeting, but even non-leaders, if somebody asks an obvious question or what they think is an obvious question, or you might even think it's an obvious question, answer it with patience. They're asking it because they don't know. So it doesn't matter if you, the leader, knows. It doesn't matter if everybody in the room knows. If that person who should be in the room because they're adding value, shouldn't have meetings where people are just in the room and it's a waste of their time, they're not adding value. They're in that room because you need them to add value. Answer their question with patience and grace. Don't make them feel bad or feel like it's a dumb question, because then you'll never get any more questions from that. And that's always a challenge. And I've been challenged that way too, but it's a great reminder to answer that with grace. It reminds me, I came across the podcast, Lee Strobel, who's the author of The Case for Christ, which is a great book. He did a podcast with Sean Ryan. I hadn't really listened to Sean Ryan's podcast before, but I saw Lee Strobel's on there, so I wanted to check it out. And Sean Ryan is newer in his faith. Lee Strobel has been strong in his faith for 40 years or so, and Sean Ryan was asking some basic questions in there, and I just was so impressed with the grace in which Lee Strobel answered those questions and the enthusiasm. He answered them like he was answering it for the first time, because for Sean Ryan, it was the first time. He had questions, and they were great questions because they were his questions, and he was searching for understanding. And that just really struck me, and I thought, how do I bring that back to work, model it myself, and teach it to others, that no matter what the question is, if somebody doesn't know, they need to have the freedom to ask. And if they don't know, you have to answer it, because they don't know, man. You need to help them. And we've all been in that position. I know I have many times. So let's all be unafraid and be bold in asking the obvious questions.